Welcome, guys, to our very first movie review. I'm Joe.
And I'm Dee.
And together we're Jody. Well, we're very excited because Dee and we love movies.
Yeah.
Right? And we believe that movies don't always have to be, but they can be from time to time a very important part of date night.
Yeah.
You know, there are times when our date night consists of simply staying in the house, cuddling up, watching a movie, having a nice meal, and then watching another movie, and maybe even another one.
Exactly. You know? We're movie people.
Yeah. So we wanted to share with you our review of the movie we saw. It just came out today, but we're not going to post this until a week later to give everybody a chance to see it because there are spoilers in this. So we went and saw The Batman. What'd you think? Was it good?
It was really good.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
If I'm not mistaken, IMDb rated it like a 8.8 out of 10, and I would say I have to agree.
Yeah, it was worth the rating. Now, it had a bit of a slow build up, but remember, this is a long movie. How long is it?
It's 2 hours and 56 minutes.
Yeah, almost 3 freaking hours. But it is 3 hours where you don't feel like, oh my God, when is this gonna be over?
Yeah, no, you don't realize that you're in there for that long.
Yeah. And so it moves along. It starts off simmering, and then it builds, and then it gets quickly paced, and it's very fast paced, and it's action packed. But it's also a great story. I think this is just my opinion, but this is the greatest Batman story where they take the time to develop the story and have a legitimate story behind just the plot, because to me there was a plot and then there was also a theme. You know what I mean? You kind of feel it?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to say, because I have been watching Batman ever since I was a little girl, and I have my favorite Batmans. We don't have the same favorite, but I would have to say I do like the plot that they went through in this movie, and I do think that they dug deeper into Batman, who was played by Robert Pattinson. His character development, I think, was really fleshed out.
Yeah. Now let's give him a little overview, and then we'll get into some more specifics. Now, I think Robert Pattinson, as far as Batman himself, when you see him with his mask and his cape and all of that, it gave you some kind of Michael Keaton vibes. You know what I mean? The look was similar to me, you know, and that was maybe a bit nostalgic for those who, some believe that Michael Keaton was the best Batman ever. To me, it's Christian Bale, but whatever, you know. So, you know, when he comes onto the scene and you see him in his vigilante suit, you know, he's the number one vigilante. It's just like, I can kind of get some, you know, Michael Keaton vibes out of this look, you know what I mean? Because Michael Keaton, unlike Ben Affleck, like we just talked about, Ben Affleck was like the biggest Batman. You know, he was,
I don't even talk about Ben Affleck as Batman. You know, I do not like Ben Affleck playing Batman. I think he played Batman like a jerk. Like, you know, I don't dislike Batman. There are some people who do not like Batman, or who like Batman but don't like Bruce Wayne because he's a rich, you know, billionaire kid or whatever. So some people don't like him because of that. And I never cared about any of that stuff. But I just think that Batman was a jerk when Ben Affleck played him. That's what I think.
Somebody asked him what was his superpower. He said, "I'm rich."
Yeah, like, the what?
But, you know, but this Batman, you will see a whole lot less of Bruce Wayne. You don't see the billionaire playboy.
No.
You don't see him riding around in a Maserati.
He's not slick at all. He's not sleek. It's like, money matters not to this particular
You know, there was even a point where Alfred told him, who was played by Andy Serkis, he had a small role in it, but he played his role good. He plays everything good, though. I mean, you remember him from Black Panther. He was amazing. You know, so he even tells him, he's like, man, if you don't get your act together,
you're gonna be broke.
And he's like, I don't care about any of that. I just want to kill bad guys. You know?
Exactly.
Well, he didn't say those exact words.
But that's basically his premise, which is so different from other Batmans. When you think about previous ways Batman is portrayed, even when Christian Bale played him, he's probably the most rugged Batman, I would say, up until Robert Pattinson's, and even he cared about the money to a degree. And then of course when George Clooney played him, Val Kilmer, that was all like, I'm Bruce Wayne, I'm playing the part, I'm definitely out here making money and making moves. And but Robert Pattinson is not like that at all.
But he was perfect because this Batman is darker than any Batman.
Yes, probably very dark, very dark.
I mean, he is merciless on the Bat. He would like punch a guy, knock him down. The guy's on the ground helpless, and he pounding on him, pounding on him 10, 12 more times. And then, you know, he showed no mercy to anybody in the movie. He was breaking bones and doing all this other stuff. I mean, he was.
And then they get a point to say that they call him like that fear. Whenever they show the bat sign now, it's not like, oh, it's Batman. Like previously it was like, Batman's coming to save the day.
Oh no.
Now it's like, oh, Batman's coming. Let me just leave.
Let me put it because Robert Pattinson, he was so dark, and Batman has always been the superhero in my mind that expends the most energy. Like, he refuses to use weapons. He's a martial arts master. But in this particular Batman,
Robert Pattinson did not have as many gadgets, which is part of his character development. I mean, there's one particular scene where he wants to escape. Well, he escapes, but he escapes in like some really fashion that none of the other Batmans would have escaped. They would have had the Batmobile come and fly up and get them, and they would have peeled out. Not him.
Yeah. So he gets Batman actually gets arrested because he's trying to. The Riddler is so crazy in this movie that he not only makes it look like Batman is working with him, he actually thinks that Batman is working with him. He's so crazy. I mean, the Riddler. The Riddler was played by this actor. What's his name?
Paul Dano.
Paul Dano. Now, according to IMDb, he's been in tons of movies, but he's got a very forgettable face. But I think that was perfect for playing the role of the Riddler because that was the gist of his anger. You know, he felt like he had been forgotten, cast aside. You know, nobody kept their promises to them.
Yeah.
Particularly,
I like that they went more in detail about his background. Like, if you guys remember, oh man, why his name just escaped me. Jim Carrey played the Riddler when we in the early 90s, and he was more disgruntled because of being fired from Bruce Wayne Enterprises or something going on, and he couldn't finish what his project was, so he was more upset about that. But the Riddler here, to me, he gives a more understandable story, but it's still not justifiable. But it's still somewhat understandable. You know, about him being an orphan, and
And that's the thing that I said. So we had the Riddler and the Penguin. Okay, we'll get into the Penguin a little bit. The Riddler, he was super intelligent. He was calculating. He just had a way of letting everybody know, I'm playing chess, y'all playing checkers.
Yeah.
He only got caught because he wanted to be caught.
Yeah.
No one could figure out his next move. No one could figure out. Not even Batman, who, in my opinion, has always been one of the most intelligent of all the superheroes. That's his real superpower, his intelligence. Because the Riddler was leaving all of these riddles at the crime scenes, and Batman was solving them right there at the crime scene, at least on the surface level. But all of these riddles had, underlying currents to them, and later on, Batman figured them out. But no one
like the way Paul Dano played the Riddler. It wasn't as flamboyant as how Jim Carrey played him. To me, Jim Carrey was more like, "Hey, I'm crazy," but the Riddler was more psychopathic,
and dark.
I'm a psychopath, but I don't know I'm a psychopath, and I'm he just carried on. I'm doing this for the everyday people. He really thought he was a man of the people.
Now, and not only was he a man of the people, because remember, he obtained a following. He ended up having a whole army that after he was in Arkham Asylum, they carried out the rest of his plan. So this Riddler was also darker. than the previous Riddler, along with Batman being darker, but the Penguin. Now we get to the Penguin. The Penguin was, he was just your average thug, but he was number 2 in Gotham City. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Behind Carmine Falcone, mm-hmm. played by what's his name, John Turturro. Mm-hmm. But the Penguin was played by Colin Farrell, and I think this is one of my most favorite roles I've ever seen Colin Farrell play. Yeah, most definitely. Because when we were reading the credits, I was like, Colin Farrell, what? He was in this movie? And so I looked at the credits and I was like, he was the Penguin, because the makeup was awesome.
Yes. The way he even moved was like a penguin. Like he did really good. He did really good. Yeah, he played a good role. He didn't have as much depth as the Riddler, but he was very good. He was the boss in the club owned by Carmine Falcone. Of course, Carmine was the top dog. But I like how, DC, they're pretty good at sticking to the comic books, but I like how they really, really stuck to it, and Carmine Falcone being Selena Kyle's father. So Catwoman, she was played by Zoe Kravitz. She did an amazing, excellent job. Yes. I just love her character development as well. Mm-hmm. Like how we get to see why she is how she is to an extent. And to me, she kind of reminds me of a girl who grows up in the hood, but she's actually smart. She doesn't really want to live in that kind of environment, but she still feels like she will not become a product of her environment. She will still do what it is that she needs to do to get things done. She is Zoe Kravitz in this is so I love cats. So she moves cat-like, very sleek
without it being over-exaggerated.
Exactly, that's exactly what I like. Yeah. It's the different nuances. It's in the wall. It's the sleek. She has very sleek outfits. She just embodied to me like a good Catwoman.
Now I think there was a character who she had a bit part, and that was the mayor, Bella Real. She was played by Jamie Lawson. Now, I've been telling my wife lately, I love how I have been seeing so much more representation of dark chocolate women, who are just, bringing themselves to the table. They don't have to wear a whole lot of makeup and be these extraordinary characters. They don't have to, kind of dim their blackness down. And so this Jamie Lawson, she played the mayor-elect. She ended up eventually winning the mayor vote because the other candidate got murdered by the Riddler. Mm-hmm. So who else could win? But I like how it was represented, and it was represented in a way that didn't make it seem like, oh, this is just a token black girl in the movie. You know what I mean? And why I say that is important is because the overall theme of this movie was a thing we've seen played out in different TV shows, different movies over the past 3, 4, maybe 5 years. So, that was the theme behind the movie, but the plot, it was so good, it was so well woven. I loved how all of the characters worked well together. You didn't feel like, you never saw one part of the movie, it's like, why did that happen? That didn't make sense.
The plot was very good. So, sometimes all characters were interwoven very well.
Yeah, I agree. I would have to give it. I would agree with IMDb's rating of almost 9 out of 10. Mm-hmm. I agree.
What about the music though?
Oh my God!
So the music was so good.
How do you pronounce his last name?
Michael Giovanni.
I'm pretty sure that's wrong.
I'm sorry.
Hold on.
I listened to it.
Let me Google it.
But
Google
the score
was by let's see.
Giacchino? I don't know. That's cool. Sorry, Michael.
Yeah. We love your work though. Michael G. Okay. We're gonna get it right now.
Michael Giacchino.
Okay. Michael Giacchino. He did the score for this. And let me tell you something. When Batman stepped onto the scene, And you heard that music, you like,
yes,
it's about to go
very,
down.
I like it.
It's about to go
It's
down.
very like foreboding,
very
and
ominous.
dark,
Very
and
ominous.
yeah, I like it though. It kind of reminds me of like a dark, like if you like rock music, kind of like I don't know, like I don't know how who I would describe it as.
Well, it's so dark. One of the songs on this soundtrack is called Dark. So
Yeah.
when Batman comes, and I mean when he steps onto the scene, boom. And one thing I love about the ending of this movie. There was no, after the bad guys had been conquered and the Riddler, he completely flooded and destroyed the city, and so Batman, he comes, he saves the day, him and Catwoman and Lieutenant Gordon, because he's not commissioner in this movie, he's just lieutenant. We'll get into Jeffery Wright in a second. There was no sense of hope and peace and everything will be all right. In fact, Catwoman says, I'm getting out of here. You should come with me. This city will never change. They just cut off one head of a monster, another one will appear. Mm-hmm. And Batman says, no, I gotta stay and fix this. In fact, at the end, the Riddler in Arkham Asylum is introduced to the Joker. Mm-hmm. And he gives him a riddle. He says, riddle me this. What is more valuable the less you have of them? Mm-hmm. And the Riddler says, a friend.
Yes.
And they stop
in the hysterical laughing.
Yeah.
Laughter.
You know, it was a wonderful ending. I thought, of course, setting up for the Batman 2 or whatever sequel will come after that. But let's go back to Lieutenant Gordon. Mm-hmm. Jeffery Wright.
I love Jeffrey Wright. Anytime you hear Jeffrey Wright's voice or see him, you already know that it's about to go down. That man can act his butt off. I don't care what role it is, he always shows up. I love him.
And let me tell you what was so different about the relationship between Gordon and Batman than in other movies that I don't recall ever seeing before. They literally work like partners. Mm-hmm. To the point where Batman was at several crime scenes along with Lieutenant Gordon, and the commissioner would be like, what is he doing here? Blah, blah, blah.
Yes, but he not like that.
Yeah.
And
all the other cops.
I do find it interesting because Lieutenant Gordon at one point says that he doesn't trust any of them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think it's interesting that he has so much clout. Like, you could tell that the other police officers really respected him, even though they didn't agree with always him having Batman there, but they agreed, like they didn't agree, but they respected him, so they let it happen. But he says that he doesn't trust anybody else that's in Gotham Police. Yeah. So I just think that's interesting that.
Well, see, there was just cause for that because that was the Riddler's purpose. He was exposing corrupt officials, corrupt policemen, and the corruption ran deep.
Yes,
it ran deep.
Even with one of Lieutenant Gordon's close friends, who he thought was a good guy.
Oh yes.
Remember when he said he likes to work out at night?
Yeah.
And that's when the Riddler got him.
Yeah. And he was so corrupt that he chose to die rather than expose other people. That's how high up the corruption went. And the story was so well written. It was so you'll find, even with all of these spoilers, you'll find reason to watch.
Yes.
And you'll still be like, oh my goodness, that was so good. There's nothing, it's not like a dramatic thriller with plot twists and turns. It's just a well written story. And kudos to the writers and the director. They did a good job. I give, like I said earlier, the Batman is definitely.
And something else about the plot that I noticed that I don't recall being in other previous movies, and maybe it was, but I just didn't pay that much attention. But they made a big deal of talking about Wayne's family, Bruce Wayne's family, and their legacy, and made it seem kind of marred in the eyes of the people. Like, okay, we thought it was this and, that, and this is what their legacy is, and we thought he was such a good person. And then the Riddler basically tries to destroy the good thoughts that you had about Bruce Wayne and his family and what they've done for Gotham. And I just find it so interesting that all throughout the movie, people are like, oh, we're going to stick it to the rich guys and this and that. But they don't realize that the main person that they're so all enthralled with is one and the same. It is
Batman.
Batman as Bruce Wayne, which I find quite hilarious and ironic. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's ironic.
It was a good movie. We're gonna leave y'all with that, but I gotta say, stay tuned for our next movie reviews. We're gonna review some movies that we've watched here at home on one of our favorite channels. I'll close by telling y'all this. The Batman is worth the price of admission. It's worth the price of admission. I was glad we got to see it on early on. You know, we went early in the morning so we could be, you know, kind of there by ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, in the theater, because you know COVID is still a real thing. You know, so it was enjoyable. We hope y'all enjoy it too when y'all go to see it. So we hope y'all enjoyed this video. If
Like,
you do,
comment, subscribe,
and share.
Yes.
All of the above. So y'all enjoy. Y'all have a good night.